So I just read The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And the book is basically about the fact that you already know what you need to do. The problem is that you just don't do it. So he gives this example of, cake isn't good for you. So if you eat a bite of cake, what if that showed its results instantly, like 50 years of results, and you instantly gain like 200 pounds? Things like that, where you go to work and you don't do what you're supposed to, and you're instantly fired, which is maybe how it should be, but he's talking about like you're doing these small things that, maybe you make one less call, and then it compounds that over time, and you end up making basically no money, and you lose your job, and you have nothing. So, we all know what to do. We all know we need to make that extra call. We need to eat that healthier option instead of that less healthy option, but we don't do it. And I really believe in that. A lot of people think, they're missing something that they don't know. I think we all know enough to fix most of our problems. We just don't do them. So the next thing I want to talk about is that your results are slow to show even when you start doing the right thing. So they give this example of this one guy who is going to eat 100 less calories per day, and then this other guy who's going to keep his daily calorie intake, but he's going to have one beer every night. So this guy that has one beer every night, he's exactly the same as this other guy for the first month, same with the second month, same in the third month. Now, we get to the 15th month, still the same. At the 18th month, they notice a small difference if you look really hard. And then at month 25, there's a noticeable difference. At month 31 is when it really starts to pay off, and you're like, oh wow, this guy is fat and this guy's not. So 31 months before you really realize that. So it's very hard to stay motivated in the meantime when you're not getting those results right away and not even seeing anything at all for 15 months. So he talks about this guy, Big Mo, and Big Mo is just his personification of motivation, and not motivation, but momentum. So Big Mo is momentum. So when you have the motivation to keep doing something over and over, Big Mo is like this really cool guy who he will show up to your party if you keep it going long enough. Big Mo will come by and just make it explode, and it becomes the most amazing party that there is. So anything that you do, you just have to keep it up long enough for Big Mo to come by, then you'll see the results, and then you're still going to have to push just as hard to continue those results. Sometimes it gets easier, but you have to be willing to push just as hard nonetheless. But when Big Mo comes to the party, that's when you see the real results. So I thought that was kind of funny. One example he gives is when you're at a water pump. And obviously, in America, we don't really have those anymore. But back in the day, you'd have this water pump where you pump it up and down, and then it creates suction, which pulls water from deep in the ground, and then it comes out. So he says that a young person might come up, especially today when they don't know how it works. They'll pump it really hard, they'll be really excited, and they'll go for it, and after 1 minute, they'll just stop. They'll be like, oh, this doesn't work. Maybe they'll go for 2 minutes, and a few drops will come out, and they'll be like, what? This wasn't worth it. Why did I even waste my time in this, right? So then he says, if you were to go for 3 minutes, you get to the point where the water is flowing very quickly, and also you don't have to pump as hard because it's like Big Mo has showed up to that party. So it just sort of goes by itself. He also says that little thing at the playground where it spins around. He says it's hard to get that started sometimes, but once you get it going, it's easy to continue it going because Big Mo is at that party. So he says that anything that you want to manage or change or fix has to be measured. So he says if you want to fix your diet, the number one thing you have to do is write down every single thing that you stuff into your face. So you're less likely to eat small things because you don't want to pull out your app on your phone or whatever and waste time. You're also more conscious of it. But at the same time, you're also keeping track so you could look at it later and make changes. And he says to do the same thing anytime you spend money. Whatever your problem is, he says his first line of defense, the first thing he does when he wants to change something, a bad habit, make it a good habit, is he first measures it. So what is measured gets managed. And then he says to go for wow. So like I said with the water pump example, you have the few drops of water, and you just have to go a little bit longer to get the steady stream of water. So he talks about how you can get amazing results by just pushing a little bit harder, because sort of your competition has the same problems as well. He talks about bodybuilding, where if you do one extra rep at the end, that's like huge because that's when it's the hardest, and that's when you get the most benefit from it. And it's also when your competition is less likely to do the same thing. I think that was something from Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was actually very smart. Another thing he says is Oprah, she started one of her seasons, like season 17 or something, by giving cars to 11 people on stage. And then she said, there's a 12th car. And she gave everyone in the audience an envelope and said, one of these has the keys to the 12th car in it. And then she says, open it up. And then they all open it, and every single one had the keys. And that was just like above and beyond what anyone was expecting. And obviously, that's an example that's not easy for everyone to do. It's extremely expensive. But one he gives that costs nothing is, let's say you have a net 30 contract in business, or you could even make it more simple, like talk about your rent payment. So let's say it's due on the 1st of the month. He says even sending it on so that it arrives on the 3rd, that makes a big difference because you're paying the same amount 3 days earlier, but what you're buying and what you're getting for free is goodwill. So you're getting whatever it is you were paying for, but you're also getting a lot more goodwill that way. And that's how you get the wow. Another example was he had a friend who really, really wanted to get this job, right? And he said he was interviewing and they were going to fly out the top 3 people. And he was hoping to be one of those top 3. And he wanted it more than anything in the world. So he said to him, okay, why don't you, look on social media, check LinkedIn, ask around if your friends know anyone that they know, like scan all your contacts and match it up with anyone in charge of hiring at that company. Why don't you fly there in person and go meet them? And he's like, no, because they're going to fly the best 3 anyway. So he's like, no, don't do what everyone else does. Go for the wow. And obviously he didn't do it because no one ever does. And he didn't get the job. But what I'm saying here is that pretty much everyone knows what they need to do to go for the wow. They just don't, because that's like, it's almost like trying too hard is a bad thing. But he says 80% of the time, if you try too hard, they'll appreciate that you tried too hard rather than say, ew, you tried too hard, So the other concept, this is sort of in the middle of the book, but obviously my favorite, is that he didn't mention lean, but he basically said be lean and Kaizen. So he said that making an improvement that makes your job 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% easier every single day makes your job twice as easy in 3 years. So I think a lot of the things I'm doing, here's my improvement for today. I have a video on the other channel. So these were spilling out. So I just put a roll of tape under each one so that the gap over here is a lot less. And then I never have to pick up pieces off the floor again. I think something like that is definitely something that would qualify for saving 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% every day. And I think that will compound because the time I save not cleaning up pieces off the floor, I'm going to spend doing more things that improve that station and everything else. And that'll totally compound. So that's mainly what the book was about. It's all about you already know what to do, and all that really matters is consistency, and not enough people have it, so be more consistent.